surroundings.
To what extent were the topics that your student brought forth resembled your own journey or your own things you went through?
I think their struggle with why they're here, who they are, where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do. I think I've asked these questions maybe thousands of times, like my entire life. I
Yeah.
think I literally had an identity crisis. But then later on, I discovered that if you are on a path of ascension, you are going through your metamorphosis constantly, and that every single loss, loss of your identity, loss of your job, loss of your connection, all that is an upgrade because we carry a frequency and what's around us is a reflection of that frequency. So when you get a frequency upgrade into the next band, next harmonic universe, you naturally attract different experiences. And that's very tangible in terms of when I traverse from Harmonic Universe 2 to Harmonic Universe 3, because Harmonic Universe 2 was all about me meeting Mother Mary, meeting Jesus, meeting Guanyin, meeting these ascended masters that actually show themselves in human forms to give me very tangible guidance, to give me very tangible help. Like whenever I needed help, they show up to literally give me the physical help and the guidance in human language. But then once I've gone past that, I noticed that I was left alone. Like there was no ascended masters coming to me as angels, as human forms to give me tangible help. That's when I was tested. I was basically fighting a lot of unseen battles, spiritual warfares without knowing it. And
Hmm.
so in Harmonic Universe 3, um, basically I remember the most tangible experience was when I was in Brazil. Um, I actually saw Jesus coming to me in a spiritual surgery room and he hugged me and he said he's never gonna leave me again. And then I had like 7 nights of nightmares of being kind of hunted down by robots, these Terminator looking aliens. And they always capture me, they trap me on the ground, they tie me up, taking me back into like a confined space. Like it just like a same storyline over and over every single night.
Hmm.
And on the seventh night, there were some beams of light that show up and they shoot some bullets of light back at these robots and they help me run away. So, and interestingly, as I woke up from that nightmare after being set free, I saw hieroglyphs over the walls in my hotel room. Um, like those hieroglyphs I saw in the pyramids in Giza when I went there in 2000. And then before I went to the airport, my taxi driver said, "Oh, I should go check out this Temple Goodwill," and it turned out to be a pyramid. And I went into the basement and stumbled upon a room with hieroglyphs just like that. And then when I went to the airport, like all of a sudden people could not see me. Like they just kept pushing their luggage carts into me. They see right through me, like I'm not there. And I kept waving, like, what are you guys doing running into me? And like they just don't see me. And I've never had that experience before until that time. And just reminded me of the experience of that. There was like a book, a movie, what is it called? Celestine Prophecy, where a guy in Peru was being chased down by soldiers, and then he then opened up his heart chakra. He meditated with a little girl, and the two of them just ascended beyond that three-dimensional time and space continuum right when the soldiers show up. So the soldiers could not see him, and they escaped. So I mean, I don't know if my experience in Brazil is actually a snapshot of the future, where maybe these robots that we're developing ultimately take control over humans, and that we need to also develop our body and consciousness as an ascension technology. And just in
Mm.
case one day, if we do become enslaved by robots, that might be the only way for us to like get out of it. So I don't know if what I experienced was a snapshot from the future. Um, it's very possible, but because I'm a scientific person, I don't believe in anything that I cannot prove. That experience of disappearing and still being able to see what's happening in the three-dimensional time and space continuum um, was very, I would say, life transforming because
Yeah.
I wasn't under the influence of any substance. So I knew that that really happened and that it's possible for humans to do that. Um,
When you say prove, what is your definition of proving to yourself that something is true or exists?
well, I think when I can tangibly experience it and I know that I wasn't, using any substance to experience that, then I know that, my human apparatuses actually capture that experience, then I consider that proof. Uh,
Mm.
yeah. So I think that was kind of a big differentiator from Harmonic Universe 2, where I had all the cozy experiences of meeting my spiritual council members, meeting my oversoul family members, and then I was being tested um, completely on my own, being rescued by these light bodies that looks like humans, but they're just silhouettes. They don't really have eyes or mouths. They don't really have like the human form, but they have the human silhouettes. Um, and then after that, all I saw or experienced were these golden orbs, and I don't even see them myself. I only see them in recordings of me doing an activation dance in Enchanted Rock, and the audience told me that they felt the presence of the Holy Spirit, but I didn't really see anything. But I did receive that I was supposed to go there to meet someone, just like how I was supposed to go to Glastonbury to meet the Mother Mary. Um, so after the event, I look at the video and I saw this golden orb, uh, kind of like the one that burned me alive during my
Mm.
near-death experience, about the same size. At the time, I could see the golden liquid light, but when I was dancing at Enchanted Rock, I didn't see anything. But the video shows a golden orb about the same size, and it was just covering me up. So I was like a little bird in an egg. Um,
So, what was the difference between this golden orb and the one that burned you earlier on?
that's a great question. Um, so what was really interesting was that I finally harmonized with the highest frequency vibration from the golden orb. So the first time I met the golden orb, perhaps that is my twin flame, the antimatter of me as matter. Um, I was still in the three-dimensional time and space, and my body was wrestling with the highest frequency vibration. It was trying to push all the impurities out of me. It was trying to reconcile with this human body. So I think at the time I was struggling to shed
Mm.
all the densities. I was struggling to integrate, the highest frequency vibration. But I think the second time when I encountered the golden orb, I did I was fine. I didn't have any severe reaction, until I saw that in the video. So I think it could suggest that I harmonized with the highest frequency vibration, or I've internalized antimatter uh version of me and become whole now. Um, but that was way after I met someone in Hot Spring, Arkansas. It's interesting because I've had experiences where I was taken out of three-dimensional time and space to meet someone at a higher frequency band. For example, I met a woman in a bathhouse in Hot Springs, Arkansas. The bathhouse was always packed with people. But that day when I was there, nobody was there. And I walked into the bathhouse. I saw a woman wearing the exact same swimsuit as me. I was like, whoa, what are the chances? Because the swimsuit was given to me by somebody in Oregon when I forgot to bring my swimsuit at a hot spring. So I was like, what are the chances of coming to Arkansas, seeing somebody wearing the same swimsuit? So I looked at her. I was like, oh, like weird. And then I didn't talk to her. And I wonder, why is there no one else? And then when I went into the change room to take a shower and change back into my clothes, there she was. She's there again. And then she then looked at the crown of my head and all the way up to the sky. So she was doing the same thing as the Indian teachers. Um, and then she like had her mouth wide open, and then she said, I need to talk to you. So then we just exchange our phone number. And then she just called me and she just told me that I was completely floating and I'm grounded. And then she showed me a visualization to ground myself, to ground the
Mm,
pillar of light into the core of the earth.
yeah.
And it's interesting that after I learned that, all the spiritual attacks, all the unseen battles went away, because usually they came through the lower frequency realms. So when we are not firmly insulating ourselves, like with the highest frequency vibration as a pillar of light all the way to the core of the earth, we're leaving it wide open in the lower frequency realm to allow us to be attacked. So once I learned what she taught me, like the struggles that I had naturally went away, and I started to have like a natural protection. Before I had the ascended masters coming to me as humans to help me. But when I was being tested, once I learned to ground, it's almost like anything that comes towards me gets bounced back. So if people give me good karma gets bounced back, magnified. If they give me bad karma, it gets bounced back, magnified. So it's that I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to fear. I didn't have to really take any actions. It's like you become the scalar wave that comes down to cancel things out, or to meet people where they're at, or to become a mirror of what comes towards you. So you become um transmuter. So
Mm,
so that's when I started to have miraculous healing experiences, in the sense that I could become aware of something, and then that particular agreement gets canceled, or I could become aware of a problem and then the problem gets resolved. Like it became instant when I was able to anchor the pillar of light into the core of the earth. Um, like simple example will be like if I call Home Depot and they told me that, oh, they don't have this, they cannot deliver this. And then once I hung up, they will call me back and say, oh, we have this, we can deliver this. Like it was like instant. Or if I look at the sky, I'm like, oh, it's too cloudy today. I really wish there's some sun. And boom, like the sun will start to come out. So like I think once you get to the harmonic universe 5, you are in a realm of no polarity. And when you embody that, any polarity that comes towards you will be alchemized. So that plays out in healing as well. So it kind of facilitated my current mission, because when I work on my clients in a massage session, usually the moment they describe what they have to me, it's already gone. And it also allows me to really work on the subtle uh, causes of their issues, because a lot of people's pain and bodily issues are not necessarily caused by physical actions. So there's karmic reasons, there is ancestral uh, wounds that they carry with them. And those can be passed down through epigenetics. So science comes into play again. So the epigenetics can actually carry traumas from 7 generations before you. So like all your ancestral traumas actually are epigenetics that turn on or off your genes expressions. Um, and the beauty of the work that I'm doing right now is that our body actually is still protected by the mother, the source and the original creator, not just by the pill of light, but also by what's called the fascia. So fascia is the connective tissue that kind of wraps around everything, our
Yeah.
bones, blood vessels, lymphatic systems, and tendons and so on, muscles. So basically, when we were in the mother's womb, we started out as a piece of connective tissue, and then it differentiates itself into different compartments and then different organs and so on. And that continuous piece of tissue is actually our cellular mind. So there you go. Like that's why one of the missions that the mother did not get finished. So the cellular mind actually exists within the fascia. Um, so it's actually made out of this crystalline substance. It's the fourth state of water. So it's kind of this gel-like state of water. And it communicates with the source. It communicates with the quantum field. It's a transmitters, transducers, and receivers. So so when we are this little piece of connective tissue within the mother's womb, we picked up on everything that's in the water of the womb. And the mother's water actually can be influenced by her consciousness. And her
Hmm.
consciousness can be influenced by her epigenetics from her mother and so on.
Yeah.
And her womb also is influenced by the original creator, the source, because the source communicates through her water, through the crystalline structure underlying water in whatever state it's in. So my current work has a lot to do with what the mother was left at, the cellular mind, the DNA activation part of that mission. So it's all about working with the human fascia and to reactivate the DNA through creating that optimal flow of consciousness within the fascia as the infrastructure of the subtle energy body. Because our chakras, our nadis, our meridian lines all rely on the fascia as the basic infrastructure for communication. Of course, the nervous system, and most recently, I'm working on the cerebral spinal fluid that goes from the sacrum up to the brain, to figure out how to use some of the fascia related release work, whether it's through movement, through yoga or massage or breath work, to use that as a gateway to help rapidly raise human consciousness, and activate DNA, and essentially getting humans into a state of flow. So a state of flow is totally different from the yogic uh, state of oneness with the source where you meditate in a cave and you kind of go, oh, I'm not part of this world. So a state of flow is actually a high performance state where we're firmly grounded on earth into the core of the earth, funneling the highest vibration. By ascending ourselves into that same state of vibration, we become the crystalline infrastructure for bringing heaven on earth. So it's actually about doing the most work you can possibly imagine doing, but effortlessly
Hmm.
and completely in sync with the source's intention. So I think this is the ultimate state that I think I would love to kind of help people get into more as a conscious co-creator of heaven on earth, becoming a pure instrument of the source, the original creator, but not in a way that is what you might think of as a yogi with your lotus feet, like in the cave. It's deeply immersing yourself in the world and going into places where metamorphosis needs to take place, starting from you becoming the change you want to see in the world, but also to think about how we might be able to introduce heaven on earth in education system, in healthcare system, in politics, to really become that conduit of metamorphosis in any niche that people already established themselves in. So it's about synthesis and integration. It's not about negating the life experiences you've ever had. Because right now I'm thinking about my academia background. I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily saying I'm never going to go back to universities. I'm thinking about ways to create a type of higher education, a type of continuing education that is going to elevate human consciousness and truly bring about heaven on earth in a way that benefits society and humanity and the planet. And hopefully that becomes the true mainstream of education in the future.
Beautiful.
We got good questions.
How was that? How was that for you?
It was great.
Yeah.
You asked me some questions that I felt like were necessary as reminders. I think you were just very good at bringing me back to the essence. Because I remember I saw two messages from you that were a little bit like a wake-up call. I think the first one was when I first encountered the Holy Spirit, like really tangibly, and I thought maybe Christianity was the way to go.
Mm.
I was almost convinced that that was it. I'm going to commit myself to it. And I remember you texted me and you said, "Oh, I was in a yoga class and my head was feeling burning, swollen." And I thought of you. And then boom, I was like, "Oh no, maybe yoga gets me closer to the truth." And then I think the other day you said, "Oh, you have a beautiful voice." And I remember I was completely negating my performing arts self
Yeah.
because when I said the dual life, actually doing the same 15 years, I was making a lot of songs. I was improvising songs left and right, and I didn't know what was happening. I just like was blossoming into a teenager because I used to make a lot of music as a teenager. And then all of a sudden, I don't know why, like during the last 15 years, I was just randomly making music all over the place. And the beauty was that before my music was very precisely perfected, like I would play the same music over and over to perfect it.
Hmm.
But for the last 15 years, all my creations were improvised. Like the lyrics, the melodies, I didn't try to like compose it or think about it. Like it came through me. And I noticed how that is what happens when we ascend. Like what gradually as we ascend through the harmonic universes, we just naturally allow the music of the universe to come through you. Like when you're in that flow state,
Yeah.
um, it's all like right here, right now. Like I rarely kind of go back and regurgitate what I did and try to perfect it because I felt like that is not from the source anymore. Like it was already out of me, irrelevant. So
Yeah,
that's another part.
and the question becomes, what is perfection? And when you say it's not perfected, what part of you is speaking? Is that the ego or
Exactly.
academic mind, or is that just allowing what shows up?
That's a great question. Once again, you're bringing me back to like really what's important because I think inner child healing is something that I sometimes spiritually bypassed.
Hmm.
Um, and now that I am connected to the source, to the mother, I'm able to all of a sudden go back and look at my inner child and discover how my interaction with music was heavily influenced by my mother because she majored in voice and minor in piano, and I remember how my mother was a very harsh critic. Like it was never good enough. Like
Oh
even
yeah.
if you were the best, it was never good enough.
Yeah.
Like you got more to improve, like so what? You were the best in the school, not good enough, not the whole world, Like it's like I was constantly feeling inferior, even if I've repeatedly perfected what I did. So I think having the freedom to really play as a child, like through music, to not have a critic telling me what to do. But I noticed how I internalized the criticism from my mother. Like now, when I listen to my own music, whatever I improvise, I'll be like, oh, I can't stand listening to that. I have to turn it
Hmm.
off. So now I'm learning to shut off my inner critic. And interestingly, as I study the neurophysiology of flow state, I noticed how one signature of flow state is that self-referential thought disappears. Like your own self-criticism disappears. Like you're just so into doing it, you don't care what other people think, and you think
Yeah.
whatever you do is perfect. Whether it is really perfect or not, and who defines what's
It's
perfect?
perfectly imperfect.
Exactly. So I feel like now I have a lot of work to do to decondition the internal critic that I had internalized from my mother. So that is still in progress. I think no matter how far you've ascended, you always have a lower self, you always have an instrument self that is that inner child that you're supposed to parent and help grow up. And it's interesting that now I'm recognizing that I've got this witness self, which is the source creator consciousness, and I have my instrument self that is, everything that I've experienced, and that inner child that is still being nurtured. And then the unity consciousness is the awareness of the fact that I'm actually part of the source, so it's almost like I have more than two personalities, but sometimes it comes in really handy because it allows myself to really immediately transcend the inner child trauma and to look at it as an audience, and not take it personally. So I'm not
Yes.
necessarily not forgiving my mother. I'm looking at it as an audience thinking about the kinds of lessons I can distill from
Yeah.
experience to further ascend myself. Because ascension is not going to happen without descent. Like somehow we need to have an antithesis in order to find the thesis.
Yeah. And I would almost say ascension for me is no longer, I think you said it well, where you're not grounded in the beginning, you're going up there, but disconnecting here. And I
Yeah.
think I like how Ram Dass said it is we're, I am seeking to inhabit every level and then learn to be congruent and aligned in each level.
Hmm.
So I'm inhabiting this body while I'm also out there on ethical or ethereal planes, and then learning to align, not just be there or just be here, but be aware of all of it at the same time.
Hmm. Yes. And I think now that I've kind of gone through five harmonic universes, I recognize that there are 15 dimensions actually that I had gone through, and we're really a multi-dimensional being.
Yeah,
Like all of
exactly.
them coexist.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we are the center of it.
Yes, yes.
And so we can tap into any, or we are aware of them all at the same time, all at once.
Yeah. And then there's that free will piece. So basically, even if it doesn't look like it's something you want, but you chose it, literally chose it
Yeah,
to be your experience. So it's like it helped me to kind of break out of that victim mentality,
yeah,
because
exactly.
I literally signed the contract to come and play this particular character, and all these other characters, they're helping me out to create this antithesis so that I can have a storyline, so that I can have my hero way. So yeah, so I'm not necessarily like blaming anyone, blaming my mother for criticizing me. It's all part of the agreement. I signed the agreement, and she
And
helped me.
that's their highest expression of love,
Hmm.
for
Yeah,
them to lower their frequency for you to learn and wake up to your own high vibration.
exactly. Yes.
It's cool.
Yay. So wonderful to be able to like share all this and kind of have a sounding board.
Yeah. It's fun how you talked about the moment I texted you when I was in that breathing class and my head felt so big. I thought about that too as you were speaking.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
remembered that moment for myself.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps your pillar of light was cracked open and
I think it was earlier, but I was learning to harmonize it, to
mm-hmm.
ground
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
not just to be stuck here in the head and no longer and not in the body. And so it was coming in, but I wasn't able to bring it down into the body. So it was feeling big.
Oh, interesting. Because that reminds me of other missions that I had because I had many fainting spells and concussions before my near-death experience. And I
Mm,
wonder if my head injuries were the reasons why I wasn't able to anchor all that energy all the way down. And it also helped me discover stargates. So basically, I realized that there are some places on Earth where the scalar waves are so strong for particular frequencies that
yeah,
the moment I encounter those places, my body was pop in alignment. Like the fascial adhesions from previous physical traumas just went away. Like boom, I was popped in place and the energy aligned. All of a sudden, I had no pain. So I think that was another blessing, another like tangible experience that helped me understand what cannot be proven might not mean that it doesn't exist. Because spatial medicine for me was crucial for my journey, probably because I had so many physical traumas. And the integration of the high frequency was challenging for me physically. So I just have been a pilgrim of different high energetic sites, and I realized how each one of them really play a significant role in allowing me to ground the energy more and to kind of break myself out of the physical trauma as quickly.
Yeah, and I would almost say the physical trauma, to reframe it, or the head concussions, were subtle or strong reminders. Let go of your head. Don't control, so it
Mm-hmm.
can pour down into your body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
was literally the post I just put online, where I got hit
Oh.
in the face and
Mm-hmm.
my heart cracked open
Mm.
because I there was enough force and enough pressure in my psychology or my environment that I wasn't able to hold it anymore, and therefore dropped into my heart and it cracked my heart open.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Because I did notice how after my head was swollen, I noticed how I had these bumps, red rashes coming out of my heart. So I think there might be something to be said about how when the head couldn't handle it all, it has to come down.
yeah.
And then it started to go further down. Yeah.
And I've been seeing in my I do Bikram yoga as well nowadays, or hot yoga,
Mm-hmm.
26 and 2. The more I practice that, it's very grounding. It's a very simple, it's a beginner's yoga kind of, where it's all about
Mm-hmm.
the lower extremities and really strengthening and opening it up.
Mm-hmm.
And my heart just started burning. My skin started burning because I wasn't able to fully open my heart
Mm-hmm.
and fully drop it down in more into my body. So it's been a reminder
Mm-hmm.
for me to really focus on opening up the heart, quieting the mind and opening up the heart, especially as I leave corporate.
Mm-hmm.
Opening up the mind or quieting the mind and opening the heart. And as
Mm.
I do that, my hips become softer. As my hips become softer, I'm starting to feel my feet getting softer. The skin is getting softer. The way I put my feet on the ground, I can feel the ground, and I'm able, more consistently able to pull in energy from the earth and disperse it again, as opposed to not
Mm-hmm.
being able to do so. So that's my form of grounding that I am learning. I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing Bikram. I'm doing Taekwondo as well to kind of counteract the yoga practice to literally learn to stand on my feet. And when I say stand on my feet, it means standing on my heel, my big toe, and a little to the right of my big toe so that I'm well balanced all over my feet as opposed to standing on the edges or on the inside, perfectly balanced. And as I'm perfectly balanced, every part of my feet can pull in energy, which then nurtures all aspects of my hips, my root, my sacral, and then it moves up all the way to my crown.
Wow. Very
Yeah.
interesting because what you just said kind of mirror what I was mentioning in terms of fascia being the infrastructure of our subtle energy body. And, once we've built up enough heat through breath work, through yoga, the water in the fascia, the liquid crystalline structure, then becomes more and more fluid. And so then fascia is able to conduct higher frequency through you. That's when you started to feel more grounded, more connected with the earth, and to be able to receive more. So that's how I often receive downloads, like doing yoga or after yoga. So I think there's something to be said about the physical practice, like to tune ourselves as an ascension instrument. And then fascia is a critical piece. For this.